Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. And now, the new Queen Sleep Number 360 P5 Smart Bed is only $17.99. Save $600. Only for a limited time. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.
In retrospect, probably should have gone to counselling, probably still should go to counselling. I probably should have drank a heck of a lot less. Did I drink as much because of that? Maybe, maybe not. I definitely only spoke about it when I was totally steaming. Again, aforementioned mates, and that's probably been something that's been true of the last, ever since that happened, 14 years ago now?
My name is Halina Rafai, and this is the A Sonic Hug podcast. Over the coming months and episodes, you will hear the voices of people from different walks of life who deal, experience and battle mental health issues. I spoke to Ali for this podcast about grief. I've known Ali for over 10 years now. He's a vibrant ball of life. Whenever thrown with a challenge or any negativity, he almost always responds with help or his glass half full approach. This podcast shows a different side to the Ali I know, and the impact of grief and his means of coping with it show a vulnerability which a lot of men keep hidden. This is Ali's story.
My name is Ali McRae. I am a 32-year-old man from the west of Scotland. I have worked in the music and radio and media business for the last decade. And currently I work for BBC Scotland. I guess I have not faced grief from a really young age, but I think my granny died when I was about 12, who I was pretty close to. But she'd been ill for like 2-3 years and going in and out of hospital. So I was kind of like, that was just a very like, for me it was very, not transactional, but it was like, oh, Gran's not here anymore. And somehow I was like 12 or 13 and I was just like, okay, dealt with, super sad, dealt with it though. And then when a couple of years after that, sadly, my dad had an uncle who lived in Canada. It was my dad's uncle, so it's not like my great uncle. But my dad didn't have a big family on his side and he had fought in the war. And we'd been over to visit him when I was younger in Canada, and I idolised this guy. And I think I was about maybe 14 when he passed away. And it turns out he'd had cancer, but he'd kept it from us in an incredibly male West of Scotland way. And, you know, he was a lot older because he would have been like 18 when he fought in the war. But then he died at the age, in his 80s in Canada, and he never had a family. And that hit me quite hard because I was like, oh man, like, because I think I really looked up to him in a very like wee boy kind of way. And then when I was 18, completely out of the blue, my dad passed away when I was 3 weeks into uni. And it was like he was he'd been working super hard. He worked for the University of Paisley. He was kind of ran the library in the university, but he'd also like as a side hustle started a course in archaeology. And I think it was like a couple of weeks before he was doing it, and he was just trying to do way too much. And I think his mate had given him a phone and said, do you want to go for a pint? And, you know, my dad was not a big drinker in the slightest, but I think he very much would go, like, once the kids were in bed, he'd go to the pub for one in the village that we lived in. And I think he was just left the house and just had a massive heart attack about, like, 20 metres from the house. And the next morning, it was 3 weeks into my university career, so I'd gone to Stirling Uni. And as you do in the first couple of weeks, I'd been out every single night. I'd even started seeing this girl, and I remember we'd gone out, got really, really wasted, and then I woke up in my bedroom, in my hall's bedroom, and someone was knocking at my door. I was like 9 o'clock, and there was like shit everywhere. Like the sheets were everywhere. I think I was probably half on and off the bed. I don't know if me and the girl had a fight or something crazy had happened, and everything was, and I just opened the door, and I remember my mum and my auntie being there, and my mum, just her face, I'll never forget it, just walked in. I was just like, Ali, your dad's dead. And she just blurted it out. And I was just like completely hungover, and you know, like waking up fear, and I just like and just cried my eyes out for hours. And my auntie was there, my mum's sister was there with her, and then I can't even remember, like a few of my flatmates who are still my best friends to this day, but guys you just met at uni, were like, I remember a couple of them sticking their heads out and just going, what's going on? I think I uttered to one of them, and then I was gone. I just got in the car, and I remember that drive back from Stirling, and I remember just driving over and just looking at the window and just being like, oh, everything has changed. Everything has changed. And yeah, that was utterly the saddest moment of my life. In the sort of days and weeks after that, I think my initial reaction was just to do stuff. And, you know, everything from like making a cup of tea when we first got home to knowing that I had to feed everybody. And I was very much of the feeling like I have to do something, I have to be part of this. So my mum and my auntie were there and were like, well, what do? We have to start telling people. So me and my mum just took the list of my dad's friends and I just started phoning them up. When I look back at that now as an 18-year-old guy, phoning up my dad's best pals and going, I remember how I did it. I just did a total shtick that I'd kept to and written in front. I was like, hi guys, I've got some really bad news for you. I'm just going to tell you, and then I'm going to hang up the phone. And I did it, and that was awful. But I just felt I had to do it because I had a responsibility, and I was like, I'm going to do this. Imagine that now. Like, now I think about it as my friends who have got kids and stuff, and I'm like, imagine one day that kid phoned me up. It really is playing in my mind a lot at the moment because a lot of my friends are having kids. And I don't, and maybe that was the wrong way to do it. Maybe we should have gone and seen them. But my dad had a lot of friends, so there was a lot to get through. At the time, again, because I was 18, I had a large circle of friends from school, and these new friends I'd just met at uni. And I remember must have been the day after Dad died, and there was a knock at the front door, and 11 of my best friends from school, all lads, all 17 or 18, were just standing there. And I'm like, all right, Ali. And they just, like, as we used to say, they'll like come in, you go in for someone, and they'd all just come in for me. And I was just utterly taken aback because I was like, if I was them, what would I have done? And I hadn't heard from any of them, and it'd been like 24 hours. And I was kind of like, oh, what did we do? I was like, I guess you guys should probably come in, because everybody knew my dad and everybody loved my dad, and like loads of my friends would always come to our house, and Dad would start like playing stupid songs about them on the piano and wind them up and go, oh, who's got a girlfriend yet? And he'd be like the life and soul of my mates at school. And I didn't realise at the time, they'd be grieving as well, and that was definitely the first of any of that group of pals that had lost a parent, so we were all like confronting it at the same time. And I kind of just went through, and I was like, Mum, all of my friends are here. And she was like, oh, who's here? And I was like, look outside, and it was like 11 lads or something, and we had a spare room in the back where I used to have a drum kit and stuff. And I was like, we're just going to go in the spare room. And I remember it was super quiet. Mum told me previously, since my mum told me since that there was about 5 minutes when it was really quiet, and she was like, oh God, what did I do? I think she went in and offered us like tea and brought some biscuits and stuff, and then shut the door and just left us to it. And she said within 5 minutes there was just like laughter and stupidity, and I must have started telling them stories about uni and about girls and things like that. And she's told me since that was the biggest help around that time, because the house was filled with laughter again, and it was just like, and those guys had no clue how to deal with it. They were like just kids, man. But they all turned up, and I think they just collectively decided like, we should just go. And this is probably, I was about to say it's pre-mobile phones and WhatsApp, definitely pre-WhatsApp groups and all that, but you know, you'd still phone your mate's mum's house to see what they're up to. And I reckon they'd all phoned and gone, what do we do? How do we deal with this? Let's just go. Or probably one of their smarter mums had gone, you should all just go. And you know, they all had wee boxes of biscuits, just like, oh, here you go for your mum. And a few of them had flowers, but it was just this like pure show of unity. And remembering that makes me super happy, because that was beautiful. And it was like, none of us knew the words to articulate it. None of us knew how to talk about it, how to discuss it. But we knew, like, they knew I needed them. And that was amazing. That was so nice. I'll never forget that. Then it was stuff like, I guess, arrangements. And my family aren't religious at all, but the village I grew up in, Neilson, has a nice parish community and a church, and the minister lives across the road, and that's just what you do. Like, my dad wasn't religious. And I remember we went over and we had to plan it, and very quickly I was like, cool, we're in planning mode. I've got stuff to do now. This is good. I feel like I can contribute. I can feel like I can be useful here. And then started planning it. And I remember phoning one of my dad's other friends, Alan, who my dad was a musician, and he played in the Ceilidh band, and he played little folk sessions, he played accordion. And one of my dad's friends, who was my friend Craig's dad, who lived just up in the village, he was a beautiful, beautiful acoustic guitar, and still is a brilliant acoustic guitar player. And I remember phoning him up to tell him, and then the next day, poor Alan, phoning him up and going, oh, would you just play guitar at your pal's funeral? But like, and he can't sit, and I remember just being like, well, I can't really say no to that, can I? Again, probably my youth, just not realising what a big ask I'd asked. And then I'd come up with this idea to, like, I wanted a book, and I was like pretty insistent. I was like, I'm going to talk at the funeral. I'm doing it. One of us has to talk. One of me, my brother and my mum have to talk. Mum's probably not going to do it. My brother probably wasn't going to do it. It's not really his character. And I was like, I'm doing it. So I just came up with this weird thing that I was like going to get a book. That's not a weird thing, but I was going to get a book, and I wanted to like collect memories. And because my dad he worked in lots of different areas and lots of different disciplines. So he worked full-time in a library, he ran a local history forum, he was into archaeology, he did children's puppet shows in his spare time, which I used to go and help him with for years. So he was like a children's entertainer, and did Punch and Judy and all that. And he'd written a book on Punch and Judy because he was really into it. He did adult puppetry, which was like sort of almost like shadow puppet theatre and stuff, at an amazing place in Hindland called the Scottish Mask and Puppet Centre, which still exists to this day. So he wasn't just a practitioner he was into the history of it, and he also played in the Ceilidh band, played accordion. So he did so many things. So he knew a heck of a lot of people. And the thing I'll never forget about the funeral, well, two things I'll never forget about the funeral. One, we were sitting in this little round sort of house outside the church, because we were to go in last, and I remember just watching people pouring in, and my mum kind of looking down the road, because you could see the church. Actually, our house to where the church is where Dad died, in the middle. So it was quite a poignant place to be looking. And I remember her just being like, he's going to run up here, because he was always late. He was always like 10 minutes late. Not rudely late, just 10 minutes late, because he was rushing about just doing stuff. And I was just like, my mum just being like, he's just going to come out. He's going to be late for his own funeral, that old joke. But we're just sitting, we all just burst out laughing. And then I remember going in the church, and it was just like, you couldn't have fitted another person in there. Like, half of my schoolmates up in the balcony, people from all over the country, and people had flown in, and it was like, whoa, because he died when he was 58, so he was fairly young, kind of cut down in his prime. And I remember the minister, knowing that Dad wasn't religious or really like that, saying, I want to start this in a positive way, because he was a positive man. And he just said my dad's name, and there was like a standing ovation in the church. I'll never forget that. And it was just like, that guy's had such an effect on so many people. And that was a beautiful thing. That was comforting. Anyway, then I did a talk, and I can't even remember what I said. I just garbled a load of nonsense about how great he was. But I felt I had to do something, and that was the point. And I guess in the days and weeks after that, I was like, well, he really wanted me to go to uni, so better get my ass back to uni. Which I did, and I remember turning up at Stirling train station, because I've been like, Mum, I don't want you to drop me off, I want to go myself. And I got the train, and I went back into my halls of residence with this group of like also teenage boys who I'd known for 2 weeks. I'd been drunk with for 2 weeks and nothing else. And they were all just like, I walked in, and instantly I was like, we're going to be best pals for life. And I've been at all their weddings, we've stayed in touch, we speak every day, the same 6 guys that I lived in a flat with. And that's a beautiful thing, because that, you know, I'm not saying we stayed together because of that, but it was like instantly I was like, I've not just come to this random town where I don't know anyone. I'm surrounded by people, and that's amazing. And the last time I'd seen my dad was when he dropped me off at uni, and he'd been so proud, and it was Mum's birthday, and we'd gone for a chippy which probably contributed to his massive heart attack, ironically, in the Allen Water Cafe in Bridge of Allen. And it was just like, and so then Stirling became a very, very poignant place to me, and a very, just a place that I was like, well, I better not fuck this up in terms of uni. I just got my head down and got on with it. And in retrospect, probably should have gone to counselling, probably still should go to counselling. I probably should have drank a heck of a lot less. Did I drink as much? because of that. Maybe not. I definitely only spoke about it when I was totally steaming. Again, aforementioned mates, and that's probably been something that's been true of the last, ever since that happened, 14 years ago now. Probably don't really open up about it. Best mates are probably sick of having to sit with me when I just go, oh, he's having a night like that. Oh, he's just going to get pissed and talk about his dad. I don't know. That's how I deal with it. I come from the west of Scotland. I'm an idiot guy. Toxic masculinity of just going, nope, fine, go on with it. Because that's the generation my dad came from. And you know, massively looked up to my dad. And I guess that, yeah, I didn't seek any help. I just got on with it. I probably could have been there more for my mum. Maybe I should have stayed at home, but she would have hated that. She would have wanted me to go back to uni, which I did. But I do remember that Christmas. So Stirling Uni is a total, some people call it a summer camp, but it's got quite short semesters and everything's done by December. And in first year, everybody went home from halls, but I had got a job at Dunblane Hydro because my dad had always, total mantra was always like, you work really hard and you play really hard. So I'd like been lucky enough to, you know, give me a bit of money, and so lucky to get to go to university by, you know, how hard my mum and dad had saved. But I was like, I'm getting a job, 100%. And I got a job at the Dunblane Hydro doing the Christmas run of like, in hospitality stuff of like these Christmas parties for all the big companies. So each night after night for pretty much 26 nights, or maybe it was up to like Christmas Eve or something, I was living on my own in halls because everybody else had gone home. I was working this job that I didn't need to be working. I could have just gone home and got a job like in the local pub, but for some reason I was like, well, I'm committed to it, so I better do it. And it was hateful. It was like totally drunk people who all work in insurance companies or working wherever around Stirling, all on their Christmas night out in about, you know, like hundreds of people in each function suite, and it was just the same thing every night. Some nights finishing at 4 a.m. and just walking back to uni, which is like 6 miles or something like that. The Christmas after my dad had died, like, I should have just gone home. I should have not done that job. But I did it, and then going back to fairly bleak uni halls on my own, and I was like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, there was probably some weird psychological thing going on there. I was beating myself up, but just like work, ignore this, pain in my heart. But yeah, like also in that period, like my friends who had met at uni who I hardly knew, and my friends who had gone to school with were there for me every single day, and it was amazing. So yeah, the days and weeks and months after my dad's death were a bit of a blur. And a bit of like guilt because I'd just gone back to my life, I suppose. But that's the life that he really wanted me to go and have. So I just got on with it. And then I was at uni and I got involved in a lot of things, which has probably led to everything I've done in the last 10 years. And the reason I've got a career is probably just a mixture of wanting to do my dad proud, but also just wanting to do lots of stuff so that my head is full all the time and I don't need to think about it. I've not dealt with grief very well, not in a very, probably not in a healthy manner, and it's only, I'm 32 now, and it's only in the last maybe 3 years, that I've actually thought and looked at periods of that time when I was 18, in fact all the way through my 20s, where I've probably been super, I've known about the mental health conversation, I've seen it, I've supported it, but I've never taken it on board myself in any way. And I've gone, it's only recently I've realised that I used to have a job that I dreamed of having, working for Radio 1. And I look back at that and go, I was dangerously anxious all of that period. I was making stupid decisions because I was so worried of fucking it up. I don't know if that's got anything to do with grief. I think that was just like, I'm very, very anxious. But I just go, that's just what you do. And then a horrible cycle of years of just drinking loads, way too much, because I felt like I had to be out and doing things, and that didn't necessarily need alcohol, but I thought it did, probably for my confidence. Even though I am very loud and very outgoing, definitely needed the bevy to do that. And I probably was covering stuff up, but then you wake up in the morning and you're super anxious and you're super terrified, and then you make bad decisions because of that, and just a cycle of that for probably like a decade. There's just no two ways about it. Like, that's what I was doing. Did a lot of amazing things, got super lucky, did a lot of things I'm proud of in that period, but I think I could have probably done a lot more. I always wanted to do something in my dad's honour, and it took me until I was 30 to actually do something to raise money for the British Heart Foundation. Just because I was filled with doing other things, and I don't know. So I've definitely not dealt with grief in a way that is healthy, I don't think, and I've never really spent time looking into my own feelings of it at all. I've just gone, save that for another day, I'll be fine, which is really bad. That's really bad, and I'm aware of that. I'm aware that it's bad now, but it's only in the last couple of years that I've gone, Maybe will I talk to someone? But I like to process my own thoughts myself. And now I feel a bit more that I go, okay, I just feel anxious now. I need to just spend a day alone. I need to do this. I need to go away. But yeah, I think a lot of it will be tied up in grief and covering things up and just wanting to escape and go, right, I've worked really hard, there's pressure, I'm scared of things, I'm sad about things, I'll just get drunk. And it's 100% that. I have thought briefly about giving up Evie for a while, and that scares me. And that's a bad sign. That's scary. I'm like, no, but I can't. Yeah, but I can, because it's a habit. It's bad, man, that's bad. But I've always got a weird thing, because my dad was very good in that he would never drink alcohol in front of us. And he just didn't do it, and he didn't want it, and he was pretty strict about it when you're a teenager and you're cutting about and you're going to house parties, and I would get an absolute screaming at for getting drunk when I was too young to do that and stuff. Then it kind of egged me on, because I was a bit of a rebellious dick of a teenager, just going, I'm going to party, I'm going to get into music, I'm going to do this, I don't want to go to school. And I don't know how that sat in my head, whereas I've friends when I was growing up who their father sadly drank a lot, and they had a different relationship with alcohol where they just didn't want to drink because they'd seen that, whereas I'd never seen my dad drink. So I was like, oh, this is naughty, this is cool. I don't know if that's got anything to do with it. My dad's dad died when he was 58 of a massive heart attack. Dad died 58 of a massive heart attack. I absolutely have my mum's genes. I have my mother's nose. I have my mother's hair, which if I let it get too long, I look exactly like her. And my grandpa was super tall on my mum's side, so fingers crossed I have those genes. But that, I've been acutely aware of that. And you're probably bluntly aware of that too. My fiancée, probably in the earlier years of our relationship, I was like, well, I'm not going to see 70, because I've just had it in my head. I'm like, well, that's not that. Has that spurred me on to do more? Probably not. I think there must be something that I need to learn to chill out a bit more, and I need to learn to relax, because I know I'm repeating the mistakes. I'm literally repeating the health mistakes of my family, and I'm terrible for going to the doctor. My dad was terrible for going to the doctor. No, I'm fine. Ironically, his quote, people would go, he did it in a cheery, funny way, but folk would be like, oh, how you doing, Gordon? And they go, oh, he's struggling on. That's in the frame of how people in our generation talk about mental health, and that is horrible. But that was my dad's thing. Oh, struggling on. I was super cheery. Oh, just struggling on, not making a fuss. That was it. That was his thing. And I'm like, that's terrible. That's awful. In the guise of how we look at mental health and stuff now. But just maybe there's a desire to do stuff. But obviously, because of the age my dad lost his dad, he probably, wanted to achieve things and do his dad proud, because he lost his dad when he was around 18 as well. So it's sort of life repeating itself, which is really sad. Sadly, quite a lot of the lads that I was saying at uni who I went back and then became friends with, sort of one by one, a few of them have lost parents as well. And each time, it's not got easier for any of us, but each time it was in very different ways. And we've been there for each other and gone, in a very laddie way, gone, do you want to go for a pint? Like, just when you're kind of getting back into that sphere of maybe I'll go and do things again, and we'll talk, and we'd go and talk and probably talk about everything but, and that's what you want. And it's kind of cool. And that definitely, in a very laddie sense, was the way that we kind of dealt with it. And that's why I value my friendship so much, and that's why there's so many bloody people coming to my wedding. And it's just like, it's like, because I value that so much, and that's what you need, and that's what gets you through. The people that, luckily I've got a family that are always there for me, and I know I could call them at any time. But these people who come into your life and they don't need to stay, then do things for you, and it's like, that's an amazing thing as well. There is a thing about guys from the west of Scotland saying you're fine. That is such a thing, and I want to make a documentary about it, and I've not worked out how to yet. I've not worked out what I want to find out about it, but it's so obvious, it's there in plain sight. Every guy just going, no, I'm fine. And then I'm so aware of it. I've made films about toxic masculinity for the BBC. I read things about it all the time, and I'm fucking doing it myself all the time. That's really bad, but I don't know how to break that cycle. Like, I've got asthma, I've got skin conditions. Sometimes they cause me trouble. I'm like, it'll get better in a couple of days. I've kind of definitely pushed grief to the back of my mind and just done stuff. And my way of dealing with it is exactly the same way that the famous Mike Skinner from The Streets says in his song Never Went to Church. I'll just get my head down and deal with the pain in my heart, the grief in my heart. And he said that, and that's just the most... I tweeted something the other day, which was like, I finally got to see The Streets at Glastonbury, and he played Never Went to Church, and I just stood there with my sunglasses, these sunglasses on, I'm holding my hand, and bawled my eyes out in front of my fiancée, in front of all my fiancée's friends, in front of a bunch of my friends. I just stood there and just cried like I've never cried before. And it was just knowing that he could articulate what I'm getting close to being able to articulate, but I'd just gone, I'll get my head down and get on with it. That's entirely the way I got on with it. And I think there's a lot to be said for that as well, because sometimes dwelling on things too long, you can get lost inside your head, and you do in a certain sense need to get on with it. But I think I definitely, as I've got a little bit older, I can't believe it's 14 years, but as I've got a bit older, I've realised, like, yeah, this is a process, and there are things I could do to not beat myself up as much. There are definitely things I could do to, this sounds super wanky, but like own that grief and like do something positive with it. And 2 years ago I did a marathon for my dad's memory. Again, I've never really wanted to run. I've always wanted to do something for him, and just in that memory, and that was a super personal thing. And it happened to be there was a marathon in Stirling, which involved running through the last place I saw him, running past the chippy. At last had food with him, and that, I cried most of the way around that. I think I was propelled by tears in many ways. And then it got to about the halfway point, and I had no liquid left in my body from sweat and tears, and I was like crying, but without being able to cry because there was no liquid in my eyes, especially when I finished. It took me a while to actually go, right, I am going to do this. I'm going to talk about it publicly. I'm going to say things and let everybody know that that's why I'm doing it, and that's why I want to do it, which I've maybe not been able to do in the past. And I'd just gone... And I know that was a good process, because that was a step towards thinking about looking after my health, because I had to think about what I was eating, I had to think about limiting my drinking intake, I had to think about exercising, and I had to do all that. So that was an incredibly positive thing to help deal with grief. And one thing it was like 10 years after it happened, 11 years after it happened, but exercise now to me feels like an amazing way to manage that mental health and manage that thoughts, because you're just giving yourself a bit of time to go and run and think. I think I terrified my mum that I was then going to have a heart attack because I was doing a bloody marathon for the British Heart Foundation, but I was okay. But the fact that I'd done that made me go, right, I have finally just thought about my feelings. I've finally done that thing that I know he'd be very proud of me doing. I've finally taken a step in a healthy, positive way to do something, and I think that's now that's probably the trigger point that made me start thinking about, like, did I deal with this correctly? Did I take steps to look after myself? Grief it's not something I feel I've got over, but it's something when I speak to people, or every now and again I'll see someone I know on Twitter and saying, oh, how'd you deal with this? It's 2 years, 3 years since someone's passed, and I'll maybe DM them and just be like, there is no right, or that's the biggest thing I can say, there's no right or wrong way. Everybody does it differently. Like, everyone in my family dealt with grief differently. Everyone I've seen who's lost parents or whatever deal with it differently, and there is no, because if you put that pressure on yourself that there's a right way or a wrong way to do it, then that's a bad way to look at it. Like, if you want to go and sit in your pants in your room for 40 days, that's totally fine. If you want to go and climb a mountain, that's fine. If you want to just ignore it and run away and travel the world, that's fine. Like, do what you got to do. If you want to get drunk, go and do it. It's fine. It's maybe not the healthiest forever, but don't feel that guilt, because the guilt's going to be another level of shit you got to deal with. Now I am very lucky to be engaged, and I'm thinking about like my future and where I want to be. And I lived in London for about 5 years, and that was totally a runaway and just go adventure and just do things. But I was always drawn to coming home. I wanted to spend more time with my mum. My girlfriend, now fiance, wanted to spend more time with her family. She suffered a loss as well, which is incredibly sad, and we kind of got through that together. And then it just felt right to be back where we're from, and we've now been lucky enough to buy a flat, and we're kind of doing all those adult box ticking things that a lot of my friends did 5 years ago, 7 years ago. But I was chasing some dream, or I'm always chasing a different dream of doing different career-wise things, but career is always really important to me. And I guess it's only in coming home and slightly confront, seeing my mum a lot more, seeing my brother a lot more, that I'll kind of confront those things that maybe I did run away. But yeah, I've always been the mindset of just do stuff, but now learning that you need to take the time to have a think and just give it the time it deserves. Don't let it consume your life. Like, give it the time it deserves and nothing more, and almost keep on going. That's a direct quote from a BBC Three video I made with this amazing guy who suffers from cystic fibrosis, but he looks like Thor. He's incredible. He's called Ben Mudge. He's an idol, and I just found him on YouTube one day and I was like, do you want to make this video? And we made this video together, but he was talking about his treatment of having cystic fibrosis, and which is a really, really serious illness, and one that definitely inhibits you doing physical exercise. And this guy looks like Thor. He's an Adonis of a man, and he says that phrase is totally stuck with me. It's like, yeah, give it the attention it deserves and nothing more, and get on with your life, which I think is a very articulate way to talk about grief as well.
Remember more, improve your focus, and multitask better. Hum is a brain sharpener that helps you do all three. Hum's wearable boosts your working memory and will be available in late 2021. Sign up to be notified when Hum launches and to learn more about the science behind Hum at thinkhum.com. That's thinkhum.com. Hum is designed for healthy adults and should not be used if you're pregnant, have cognitive impairment, implanted devices, or a history of seizures. The Hum patch is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. To learn more, go to thinkhum.com.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. And now, the new Queen Sleep Number 360 P5 Smart Bed is only $17.99. Save $600. Only for a limited time. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.
That was Ali's story. I could immediately feel the pride exuding from him when he spoke about his dad. I have a very different relationship with my father, and I felt this was a particularly poignant episode to make. There's no resentment or envy on my part, but a bittersweet happiness. A joy that Ali got to spend those years with someone who was clearly a loving figure in his life, but a sadness that he was taken away sooner than he should have been. When his father passed and the funeral arrangements were being made, he talks about how glad he was to have that planning mode enter. There's a common human trait whereby when something traumatic happens or we want to block out thoughts and feelings, we cram as many activities into our lives as possible. This has been another theme in these episodes. We are perhaps scared about facing the reality of things and also the fear of how painful it will be, so we block it out by any means possible. That in turn can manifest and build deep within us, impacting our lives in a way that we sometimes truly don't understand. As this conversation progressed, small elements started to creep in regarding the pressure that Ali put on himself to make his father and indeed his parents proud. The level of respect he had and still has for his father has once again highlighted how we carry things on generationally. Ali takes on the theme of working hard and playing hard and mentioning a couple of times how much his father wanted him to go to uni. We take those wishes from the ones we love, and at times we can turn it into the mantra that dictates us. Whilst that is a legacy that we feel is important, we must also remember that we have to stop, take a breath, process and look after ourselves. Ali recognises the toxic masculinity he has practiced, but listening to him speaking about how hard he is on himself and how he has dealt with grief will make many of us understand why he has done it in his way. The constant narrative of getting your head down, dealing with things later and showing a stiff upper lip is so prevalent that we have to look at how that can be broken or even eased. Alcohol plays its part, and for many of us who have used it as a means for escapism, to anticipate things being better or a hope for some kind of relief from our thoughts and pains, we know deep down it's not a healthy means of coping. But we sometimes just need to feel lighter, and that's the honesty. Taking those inhibitions away and ironically being able to talk about all that's difficult under its influence makes moments feel less claustrophobic and conversations achievable. So why can't we do that often without it? Ali has an unspoken bond with his friends, and that's the positivity that shines through this conversation. the unit of comrades he has had since a teenager. And whilst they have not been able to tackle conversations aloud, they have still been there for each other. Many of the men I have spoken to for these podcasts have similar thoughts, and each are happy to just have that token pint with a pal, just for company and some kind of normality. For lots of them, that is the comfort and support. Once you meet Ali, you never forget him. His kind demeanour, his passion for life, his intoxicating positivity makes you want to be a better person. The clear pressures he has put on himself and hidden struggles are something that I hope eases. He has said himself that he hasn't perhaps fully processed his grief, and whilst he quotes, "Give it the attention it deserves and nothing more," I hope he gives himself the attention he deserves and much, much more. If you have experienced or experiencing anything described in this episode, you will find support information in the text with this podcast. A Sonic Hug podcast is recorded, produced and edited by me, Halina Rafai. We are also part of Scotland's podcasting network, The Big Light. Until next time, deep breaths.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. And now, the new Queen Sleep Number 360 P5 Smart Bed is only $17.99. Save $600. Only for a limited time. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.